broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of Gun Guy Radio is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Hello and welcome to Gun Guy Radio. This is the podcast that shines a positive light on the firearms lifestyle. I'm your host, Ryan Machad, and this is your weekly dose of positive firearms talk without the politics. This week, I'm joined by Jeremy Posderick of River's Edge Tactical and We Like Shooting to discuss his experiences with the Ruger Precision Rifle and other aspects of long-range shooting. So as always, please consider supporting the Firearms Radio Network by shopping Amazon.com using our Amazon affiliate link at firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. A portion of your purchase will go towards helping the FRN create awesome pro-gun content like this show. Also, please check out the Patriot Patch Company and their current patches available for pre-order at patriotpatch.co. So, Jeremy, how you doing?
Oh, I'm going to punch this puppy if she doesn't shut her damn mouth.
So other than the canine problems, how's that SBR build you were doing going?
It's done. It works. It actually cycles now. That's always a bonus. It won't cycle without the can on it though. It's either can or no go. Doesn't
that have the curly Q gas tube on it?
Yeah, it does. But it's also a pistol barrel with a pistol gas system with a carbine buffer and buffer spring.
Okay.
I didn't want to put a pistol buffer and buffer spring in there and then throw a can on it and then get over gas in my face and have the gun getting the shit beat out of it.
And the other question is, do you plan on having a video come out of that gun on the We Like Shooting page?
I don't know. It just kind of built it for me. I mean, I guess I could. I don't know. I think if I make it full auto, I will.
I think people would like to see that because I'm kind of interested in seeing that myself. That would be one way I would want to go. Like, I don't know. It just sounds cool.
I don't know. I might full auto that son of a bitch just because it'd be fun.
It kind of sounds like that honey badger concept, the way you were talking about how it's designed.
Honey badger don't give a shit?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. I was like, where are we going with that one?
Do you shop on Amazon? How about your spouse? Does your mom? Does your, company? Why not use the Firearms Radio Network's Amazon affiliate link next time you shop Amazon? Bookmark firearmsradio.tv/Amazon or click through the Amazon link in the right-hand corner of firearmsradio.tv. Get it? Got it? Amazon it.
So long-range shooting is something that I personally have never really done all that much, and I haven't researched either. My most recent long-range, for me, experience was shooting my 8-inch steel plate with an H&R 38 Special single shot suppressed at 110 yards, which is not long at all. So shooting beyond 300 yards and probably even further would be very, very different for me. I've heard you talk about your long-range shooting pursuits with Lil over at We Like Shooting, and so I thought it would be beneficial to talk with you about how I might get started if I wanted to. And for really in-depth and detailed discussion, you can check out the Precision Rifle podcast on the Firearms Radio Network. So, Jeremy, we'll start with how did you get started in long-range shooting, and what kind of drove you to be curious about it?
Well, I mean, in the Marines, we do 2, 3, and 500 meters iron sights with an M16. So if you want to learn that, you can always join the military. But I always liked shooting. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I watched my dad shoot like a groundhog with our 22-250 at like 220 yards. And I was thinking, man, one day I want to be able to do, I was like 8. And I thought that was the coolest thing on the planet. He hit this groundhog that far away. And then when I got out of the Marines and I went to school in North Carolina, my instructor down there, his name is Ben, he builds custom rifles. So me and him became friends through our love of guns. And I was more of at that time, I was way more into like cowboy action than anything else. But I did have a 30-06 that I used to shoot pretty, I could shoot fairly long away, or so I thought then, 300-400 yards. And we went to his farm and he brought out some of his rifles, and that was when I first started shooting at 800 plus with his rifles. And then subsequently he turned my 30-06 into my, my world famous 243 Super Rock Chucker Magnum. And that's really when I got into long range shooting.
Now, for people who aren't familiar, what is your rock chucker? Because I hear you talk about it on the show all the time.
My rock chucker is it's a Remington 700 Action with a Bartlein barrel, and it is a 6 millimeter, but it's on a 25-06 brass, and the shoulder's blown forward, and it's a Wildcat cartridge. But it's my Wildcat cartridge.
So sort of like an Ackley improved type of thing.
Yeah, I could go like really into depth with it, but nobody wants to hear that. And I've already told that story like 100 times. I'm sure if they really want to go through all the podcasts, they can find it.
Go back and listen to We Like Shooting. So
yeah, pretty much.
So the world of long range shooting is vast. There's many techniques, products, things to learn. And where would you suggest that I start as someone who's never done it? And how do I prevent myself from buying just a bunch of useless crap and missing out on the stuff that would actually probably give me more value?
Honestly, you don't really need much. These days, you can pick up a decent rifle from one of the many big manufacturers. Yes, you could go out and spend $5,000 on an Accuracy International and $2,000 on a Night Force scope, and you could do all of that. But then you really want to ask yourself, what kind of long-range shooting do you want to do? Do you want to do bench rest shooting? Because bench rest is completely different from, say, like National Match. And even some of the National Match run optics now instead of iron sights. But, I mean, they still have 1,000-yard matches with iron sights up at Camp Perry. And then there's also other sniper matches and stuff like that where you're running bolt action precision rifles at various targets, and there's semi-auto classes and there's bolt action classes, and then I've even seen black powder matches where they run like old Sharps and stuff, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, those are cool. I remember Mike Venturino
love to do one of those. I just don't have the equipment. Isn't
there one? I used to read this blog a long time. I think it was The Other Side of Kim. Long time ago when he talked about going to boomer shoot, where they used like Sharps rifles and stuff to shoot these big things of tannerite at like 1,000 yards up on a hill.
Yeah.
Oh, one of those Sharps of like in 38-55 or like a larger caliber like 45-110, or was it 50-110?
Well, there's 50-110, 50-90, 45-70, 45-90, 45-110, 45-120.
Yeah. That would be really awesome. Like that, kind of like a deviation from long range shooting with like modern technology.
Yeah, it's old tech. It's new tech in a old gun, really. Because I can make a Sharps rifle nowadays that's 100 times better than anything Sharps ever came out with 120 years ago. It's the rifling's going to be more consistent. The metals are better. The tools that we have are more precise. All of that comes into play. Which is, like I saw a guy make a 1,900-yard shot with a Sharps rifle. He was shooting at a 3-foot steel disc at like 1,900 yards, iron sights with a Sharps. Boom! It was like a 6 or 7 second delay. By the time the bullet got down there, hit, and then you heard the ring back. It was crazy. He shot, rolled over, and looked through a spotting scope and watched the round hit.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it was nuts.
So, what are some things, like people, I'm sure, like with any discipline in shooting, there's a bunch of stuff that we need and a bunch of stuff that we don't need. Like with reloading, for instance, when I got started, there was so much just random stuff that people are like, oh, you should have this, or you see the advertisements and you're like, oh, maybe that'll be useful. And you buy them, and sometimes they end up not being so useful. In the world of long-range shooting, what are some things like that you might buy that might not live up to the hype or anything?
Tons of stuff is buying a better golf game. Tons of stuff is buying a better golf game. And what I mean by that is, the guy who goes out and drops $10,000 on a rifle when he already had an $8,000 rifle because for some reason he thinks that extra $2,000 is going to, just put him over the hill. And really he just needs to either develop his load more or practice more or whatever, what have you. There are some stuff, you do need a good gun. Is a factory Savage going to shoot as good as a $5,000 custom accuracy international. No, it's not going to. But there's a reason the Savage will cost you $1,000 and that accuracy international is going to cost you $5,000. It's, but you could take that same Savage for $1,000, put a $600-$800 barrel on it, and be pretty good. Or a Remington 700 action, or if you have an old Winchester 70, or if you have a, Ruger M77. I mean, all those actions are good. Objectively, some are better than others, and some people have different preferences. But a lot of it is to do with the barrel and who machined that barrel to fit that receiver, which is where you really get your custom, which is really where your money's going to in a custom long range is the precision machining.
Right.
You're getting a more precisely machined barrel. You're getting a more precisely fit barrel to your action. Then you get some of the high-end actions, and those things were just machined even better. Just the action was machined more precisely.
You're in an arena where like 100,000ths of an inch actually make a difference.
Exactly. It's all, and a lot, there's, people talk about harmonics and tolerances and bedding and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, that stuff does play but it's the difference between, if I'm just trying to hit a 12-inch steel plate at 1,000 yards, I can do that with my Savage. If I want to shoot for groups at 1,000 yards, yeah, I'm not gonna compete with that kind of with that Savage. It's just not gonna do what needs to be. That rifle is not capable of that.
Right.
But yeah, I could kill a guy at 1,000 yards with it. That's a thing that can be done.
Now, more so than any other discipline, long-range shooting, you kind of really requires you to look at the rifle as a system. You got the shooter, the quality of the cartridge you're putting in it, the quality of the rifle, like you just said, your personal technique that you use, and then other factors, and they all have to work with one another to require, to have you pull off that perfect shot. Do you feel like it really requires a greater understanding of how everything interfaces with one another when you're trying to pull off a really great shot at a long distance?
No, because you could really pay other people to know a lot of that. What you need to be able to do is think on the fly and know your rifle.
Okay.
You need to know, you need all the data you can get on how that rifle shoots with this load you've come up with. And, I mean, even just testing a custom load with you reload for handgun?
Yes.
Okay. When you reload for handgun, like a semi-auto pistol, what is it cycles the gun, it doesn't jam, and it's not getting the shit beat out of it. We're good.
Right.
Well, with precision rifle, it's a little bit different. You're changing the powder load by
tenth of a grain.
A tenth of a grain sometimes, just to see if it groups a little bit tighter. And I mean, I'm going to piss off a bunch of bench rest guys, but bench rest shooting, a lot of it is how awesome of a gun can you build with, and how well can you match a cartridge to that rifle? I mean, you got guys that put absolutely no input into their rifle other than pulling the trigger. And they test them like that. And I've seen them. They get racked. They got this thing on sandbags with a bipod on a concrete table, and they're pulling out ratchet straps. And this gun does not move when you pull that trigger. It's in this whole big chassis thing, and you pull that trigger, that gun does not move from that spot.
Well, I've seen, I had a guy that when I was at the range who was doing testing. It wasn't with a bench rest rifle, but he had a Lee loader, and I had one of those when I started, the kind that you actually have, it's not even a press, it's like a little tiny thing, and you use a hammer to drive the primer out and stuff. And he was loading every single round and doing that ladder system, going up from 13.1 grains to 13.2 to 13.3 and seeing how it shot.
Yeah, I just prefer to load all those up the night before to go out to the range.
But he kept using the same case, too, for a while.
Oh, wow.
I was like, aren't you going to
I'd
trim
be like, you need to trim that. You need to trim that, buddy.
But, it seemed to work for him, but, it seems like you're a lot more detailed. Because, like, for me, for instance, I go, like you said, I just load it and shoot it. And, like, I had my 226, my SIG, 9mm. The stuff I was loading with 115 grain at 4.8 grains wouldn't cycle my SIG. It would cycle my Steyr, but not the SIG. Jack it up to 5 grains, and it was cycling both just fine, and it wasn't beating the guns to death. So that's all there is to it to me. I'm not, really trimming the cases. I'm not checking, the case thickness, the case mouth, anything like that.
Oh, and you got guys that weigh the bullets individually to make sure that the weights are, and they got scales that go down to like thousandths of a grain, and it's got to be within so much of what it actually said. I don't get that detailed into it, but then again, I'm not doing it for money.
Right.
They weigh their brass. People do crazy shit, man.
Yeah.
People get really. I'm not that picky as long as I can. Like I said, my rock chucker, I can hit a quarter at 300 yards. I'm okay with that. I don't need to hit a dime.
Right. So you've worked with the Ruger Precision Rifle. I'm really interested in that because I do kind of want to get into this someday down the road. Do you think
it's in the garage?
Is it a good starting platform for someone wanting to get into the sport?
It's fine. It's honestly no better than any of the other rifles that the big companies put out. If you want a long range rifle for starters, so to speak, that's a precision rifle from the factory or made for that kind of thing. It's not a hunting rifle. It's not a long, heavy. But if you're going to get the precision rifle, get the 6.5 Creedmoor. Do not get the 308.
Okay.
They put a 20-inch barrel on it, and people are going to argue, no, they put out a study that said that or 26. Yeah, when you're shooting factory loads. Give me a longer barrel, and I can make my ammo work for that longer barrel. My rock chucker's got a 28 or 30-inch barrel on it.
Now, because I was looking at them, and personally for me, if I were to go out and buy one right now, say the Ruger Precision Rifle didn't exist, I would not go with a Remington because I'm having problems trusting Remington now. I would probably go buy a Savage.
I wouldn't go buy a Remington because Freedom Group pissed me the fuck off.
Right.
Not to say that. I mean, well, they just recalled like every 700 ever made because of the trigger. Now, I would just skip that and put a better trigger in it, but and just say, fuck it, I'm not sending it goddamn back. Just give me a jewel trigger.
Right.
And jewel trigger, the Bentrest ones, fully adjustable from 1.5 to 3 ounces.
I would think I would probably go with the Savage above a Remington.
I like my Savage. I have a Savage Model 110 FCP 300 Win Mag. It's in the HS Precision stock. They sell the same gun in a Macmillan stock. The stocks really aren't much different to look at, except one's HS Precision, one's Macmillan. The style of stock is the same.
Right.
It's got that real steep pistol grip coming down, then it comes up into a real square buttstock. It's nice. It feels good. Works for me. It's much more comfortable in a long range setting than a Monte Carlo stock or your traditional rifle hunting stock, because there is a difference between hunting and long range shooting. One doesn't do the other as well as one does the other. I carried that Savage around Africa hunting with it. Oh man, I'm lucky I'm a big boy because that thing is fucking heavy. And then my buddy with his Remington 700 270, the whole rifle weighs like 5 pounds. He's like, "Oh, this is great! I got a 10-pound rifle on my back. I'm like, this thing's getting heavy." And then the way the stocks are designed, you get it's this way. The fore end's flatter for sandbags and stuff like that. Than your traditional stocks, the Monte Carlo stock versus the more precision style stocks. It does make a bit of a difference because when you're hunting, you have one hand on the stock in the rear by the trigger, and then your other hand up on the fore end, And same with, military style shooting, whether you're in a loop sling or not, you're laying down with one arm forward, one arm to the rear, where with precision shooting with a bench rest and sandbags, you have one hand on the trigger, and then usually you have your other arm tucked underneath the back of the stock.
Right. Or I see some people come over the top of the stock with their other hand.
Up over the top, underneath. Like, I always do underneath because I have a bipod out front, and then because I don't have a monopod in the rear, I put a bag, a shooting bag under the back of the stock.
Right.
And then I can flex my arm on that bag. If I flex it tighter, it picks the back of the gun up, which pushes the barrel down, which makes my sights go down. If I loosen my arm up, the bag disperses, the stock goes down, my barrel goes up, and my sights go up.
I've done that before. Like, just kind of tense your forearm up, and it brings it up just a hair.
Yeah, it's just
kind of like fine adjustments.
It's very fine adjustments, and it's very steady, and it can be done. Hell, I mean, if you got a heavy duty stitcher, you can make it out of a bag of shot and some canvas.
Right.
But they sell them, though the ones that they sell are never quite right. I like it a little bit looser, so I have that more play. But and it's heavy. You fill a bag full of shot, it's heavy. Yeah, so I like my Savage 110. But I mean, the Remington, what were those? The Senderos?
Yeah, I think
those.
So.
Yeah, those are pretty good. Those are like a 26-inch barrel, and the long barrel really just allows you to build up more pressure. Yes, if you're shooting factory ammunition, there is no real difference between like a 20 and a 24-inch barrel on a 308. But if you're hand loading, there can be a world of difference. I put Magnum rifle powder behind an 80-grain 6mm because it's in a 28 or 30-inch barrel.
Right.
I'm also making that fucker scream at about 4,200 feet per second.
Now, in terms of people who want to get into the caliber wars, do you just stick with 308?
Well, I don't actually. But the only 308 I own is an M1A. I like my 30. Here's the difference: the smaller, lighter rounds are, especially for target. If you're punching holes in paper, it's a non-issue. All you have to do is ring steel at 1,000 yards. Who cares how much energy it hits with, as long as it hits it? Even if it goes tink and hits it,
you still hit it.
You still hit it. You're still going to notice that. But that's not a kill shot at 1,000 yards. That guy went like, ow, something stung me. Whereas something heavier like a 300 Win Mag is, I'm shooting a 200 grain Nosler AccuBond. And that thing's hitting with some power still at 1,000. Right. If I could get the AccuBond LR 210 grains, there's no reason I couldn't take that rifle out to 1,500. Now, I would prefer a longer barrel, and I could really start doing some load tests with see what kind of muzzle velocity I could get out of, like, say, a 30-inch barrel.
Right.
But like my buddy Ben, he was pissed when he couldn't get 42-inch barrels anymore. Because he does that man has forgotten more about long range shooting than I will ever know. Really, you should have him on the podcast. But he doesn't own a cell phone, let alone a computer.
Now, what are some things you think people overlook when they're getting started?
Don't skimp on glass, and don't skimp on glass, and don't knock a good trigger. There's most people who shoot. Most people fuck up their trigger pulls when they first start. That is and that from handguns, shotguns. Shotguns, it's not as bad because it's a shotgun and you're kind of doing it real quick while you're moving the gun. But rifles and pistols, new people tend to not know like how their body works in relationship to, just getting somebody to stand and hold a firearm correctly when they first start is mind-bogglingly difficult.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing with your head? Why are you putting your head there? Don't do that. Put your, and you're like grabbing them and moving your body around. And, but but a lot of people fuck up the trigger pull. They get excitable. They rush it. They're not expecting it. Sometimes guns with a lot of kick. I know that when I had my 30-06, that I would, after about 5 or 10 shots, that thing would start biting me. And, I'd have a big bruise on my arm, and I would flinch, waiting for, is this going to be the one that, really gets me again? And
well, it's like I've shot a bunch of 243s that have made me hate that caliber, and then I shot somebody 700 a few weeks ago, and I was like, why is this so bad in these other guns?
Weight, heavy. Like, my buddy has a 338 that makes the Lapua look like a bitch, and but it's got like a 38-inch barrel on it, and it's a solid bull barrel.
Okay.
And the whole gun weighs 30 pounds, and you shoot that thing and you don't even feel it. The gun's so heavy, it just doesn't move. Weight eats recoil, and you get these super, I see these guys with like super light, 338 Win mags and 7mm Ultra mags, and I'm just like, you have fun with that one, buddy. They're gonna come back crying with a broken collarbone. Like, you don't shoulder that thing right, you're gonna hurt. You're gonna hurt bad. And even if you do shoulder it correctly, it's probably still gonna hurt you bad. But yeah, I don't even remember what the original question was now.
Well, I have really little experience with scopes, and you did mention don't skimp on glass. So how does one go about learning what is a good, what's bad, and which scopes will stand up?
Honestly, you're for the most part with optics, the more you spend, the better it will be. Now, there comes a point when, can most people really tell the difference between two different $5,000 optics? No, most people cannot. Even I can't half the time. But you do want good, clear glass, and one of the things that you really want it to do is reset. The hillbillies out there will know what Kentucky windage is, and when you shoot long-range precision, you do not use Kentucky windage. You do the math. The way long range scopes work is you have it set at, you can unscrew the turret, turn it down, have it zeroed out at whatever your zero is, whether it's a 2, 3, 4, 500 yard zero. If you're sitting on a 20 MOA rail and you want to, if you're sitting on a 20 MOA rail and you want to, my rock chucker's zeroed in at 400 yards. Because the difference in that rifle between 1 and 400 yards is a couple inches. So it's so fast. It's flat. So
I was going to say a couple inches between 1 and 400 yards.
Yeah. It's only 1 inch drop between 3 and 400 yards.
Oh my God. Compare that with a 45-70 looking like a rainbow.
Yeah, pretty much. You're shooting artillery. That thing is artillery. That is indirect fire.
Aim 16 feet above.
Yeah. Well, it was Michalik with that 9mm. I was aiming 75 or 80 yards above the target. Man, can I say I love Jerry Michalik, but I hate that son of a because he's so good. He's so good, I hate him. And it's pure jealousy. I will fully admit that. I hate him out of pure jealousy.
He's pretty good. I mean, but it's like I was shooting...
I'm good, and he makes me look like a man-child.
At 65 yards, I was shooting a steel plate. It was 8 inches with a 38 snubby. And I was aiming a couple inches above it. And these were light 38 loads with Trail Boss. My
buddy was talking about he loaded his 38... or his 357, but he had some Target 38s that he loaded really, really, really pitiful. And he hit a Foster's can at like 30 feet, and it never went. It hit the bend in the top of the can, and it didn't even go through. It just stuck in there and kicked the can over.
I had a 148 grain wad cutter come out of a barrel one time that didn't have quite enough Trail Boss behind it, and I could watch it in the video go past the gun, like completely not even rotating. So, other than scopes, I mean, get a decent rifle, obviously.
Get an okay rifle, like I said. If you get an old Winchester 70, as long as the barrel's not shot out, you can have any gun rebarreled. Some of the Tikas are nice. Savage, Remington, Ruger. People, I get the guys that the 5R, 5R rifling is blah, blah, blah. 5R rifling was the end-all, be-all of rifling. Every competitive shooter in the world would be using 5R rifling. And guess what? They're not.
So what's the MSRP on that Ruger Precision rifle? Do you know?
MSRP is like $1,300.
I mean, that's... If I was getting into the precision rifle game, I'm pretty sure that'd be a serious option I would look at, just because I feel like I would have to spend more to get a decent rifle than $1,500. But like Savage is around like $700, aren't they?
My FCP would retail for like $1,100.
Okay, so you're maybe MSRP of $1,000.
Well, no, it would retail at $1,100.
Oh,
the MSRP is like $1,200 or $1,250.
But even then, that's not terrible.
No, it's not. And like the Ruger Precision, it has a lot of cool features to it, but none of them are going to help you shoot better.
Right.
Yes, it has a really nice trigger, but then Savage has their Accu trigger, which is just as good as the Ruger's. And they're adjustable as well. And, you know, the Ruger Precision rifle looks cool and it looks modern, but it doesn't shoot any better than my Savage.
Right.
It really doesn't. It shoots MOA, but it's a $1,300 gun. It's not a $5,000 gun. I don't expect it to shoot sub MOA. Yeah, could I get it to shoot sub MOA with hand loads? And if I really wanted to work up a load for it, probably. But we were shooting everywhere from 148 to 176 grain, you know, various rounds to see what it liked. And I think it was like I forget what shot the best out of it. You'd have to watch the video I did on it. But it's not a bad rifle, but it's not a great rifle. It's I always said it's over-engineered in the most magnificent ways, but it doesn't really shoot any better than my Remington 700 did, than my Savage did. You know, yeah, it shoots better than my M1A, but it's a fucking M1A.
Right.
You know, it doesn't shoot any better than my Springfield 99 22-250.
Mainly, it's just pay attention to like how you're hand loading, get a decent rifle, like you said, even the Savage, and just maintain your technique and get good glass. Savage and Remington are the two companies I can think of off the top of my head that build a quote-unquote precision rifle from the factory. The Ruger M77s are good guns, but they're hunting rifles. Yeah, the actions are great because it's basically a Mauser action. But, I mean, yeah, there you go. Go find an old Mauser action at a gun show, drop $100 on an action, take it to a rifle shop, have them barrel it, and put a Manners stock or some other like on it. Poof! You got a precision rifle, and you're still right at about $1,000 to $1,500. And a lot of guys do that. Mauser actions are good actions. You can do a lot with them. Right. And
so many cartridges out there share the same head stamp that, you know, I can go anywhere from a 243 up to a 7mm Rem mag, and I'm trying to think of what, you know, no, not the 7mm Rem mag, the 243, 308, 270, 30-06. I'm trying to think of what has the same head stamp as a 308, 30-06, 7.8 millimeter. Any cartridge that's based off of one of, you know, any in that same head stamp, you can have that gun rechambered for. It's a long action. Who gives a shit? Great, it's a long action. That means you can shoot anything out of it.
Right.
Like, it's not an issue. Yeah, there are cartridges that do better. I mean, hell, within 1,000 yards, a 300 short mag performs better than a 338 Lapua.
Right.
338 Lapua doesn't really shine till past 1,500. You know, that was made to deliver tons of energy way the hell out there. We had 300 short mag after 1,000, you know, 1,000 to 1,500, it's going to die off. But that 338 Lapua is going to be dropping like a rock, but it's still going to be going.
Right.
Oh, stinking badges! Ha ha ha! Oh, you meant patches! Yeah, I'd love me some high-quality patches. Where? Patriot Patch Company, you say? Vámonos! To patriotpatch.co! Whoa! You say they have t-shirts too? Vámonos! To patriotpatch.co!
So, Jeremy, appreciate you coming on, talking about your experiences getting into the sport, and where can people find you?
All hate mail can be, you could find me at welikeshooting.com, welikeshootingpodcast.com. You can find me at We Like Shooting on Facebook.
River's Edge Tactical.
You can also find me at River's Edge Tactical in Valley City, Ohio on Facebook. You cannot find me at home. If you do that, I will shoot you. Unless you are an attractive redhead or blonde.
Hey, I did look up where Valley City, Ohio was, so I was like, maybe we'll stop there on our way through to Kentucky in May. And I was like, no way in hell, that is way too close to Canada. I am not coming that close.
Oh, close to Canada? Really?
I'm in Maine, so
I'm in the boondocks, man. Sean came out here and he was making fun of me. He's like, "So what do you do?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you do?" And he's like, "What do you?" He's like, "What do you do?" Actually, my grandfather was a master whittler. But I got a whole chessboard. He made the whole board and all the pieces and everything. But he's like, "What do you do for fun?" I'm like now or like in high school? And he's like, "Yeah, what'd you do in high school?" I'm like, "Well, there's a cabin back in the woods we used to go get drunk at." He's like, "Really? You just said that?" I was like, "Hey, man, wasn't a lot to do out of here, so you had to make your own fun. You go blow up a groundhog hole or see what kind of you find a military-grade smoke bomb in your buddy's grandpa's attic, and you obviously have to set that off in an old washing machine."
Gun Guy Radio says thank you and proudly displays artwork and graphics designed by Ryan Cross of Hunter of Design. hunterofdesign.com.
So that about wraps up this episode of Gun Guy Radio. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes so that you never miss a show. And please leave us a review there as well, gunguyradio.com/iTunes. Please consider joining the NRA and the Second Amendment Foundation. There are links there in the show notes. And don't forget to check out the other shows on the Firearms Radio Network. Also, be sure to check out the Patriot Patch Company, started by FRN's own Jake Challand and Ryan Cross. Patriot Patch Company offers high-quality 3D PVC vinyl patches with Velcro backing that is sure to satisfy any taste. Be sure to check them out at www.patriotpatch.co. This is Ryan Machad, and I'll see you next week.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv. Hey, since you're already listening to a show on the Firearms Radio Network, then you should check out the God and Guns podcast. Troy and Doug talk about guns from a Christian perspective and, of course, God. GodandGunsPodcast.com/iTunes. Subscribe now. Machine gun shoots are the quintessential way to celebrate being an American. Come to the Stone Mountain Machine Gun Shoot on April 30th through May 1st to get your freedom on. Stone Mountain features a dedicated machine gun range spanning over 100 yards with a section for individuals to shoot their own. Don't own a machine gun? No problem. Machine gun rentals will be available. Interested in demoing the latest silencers from SIG Silencers, Silencer Co., Liberty Suppressors, and other top brands? Then come see our silencer range nestled in the hills of Stone Mountain, where you can try before you buy. Oh, there's more. Is engaging targets while flying down a zip line something you ever wanted to try? We've got you covered. You'll be able to demo some of the newest guns and silencers on the market. For more information, visit stonemachinegun.com. Brought to you by the Shooter's Gauntlet and the Firearms Industry Consulting Group.